So we are into next segment. So we are discussing the transportation of respiratory gases. In the previous class, we have seen the exchange of gases at two locations. Right, one is at the site of alveoli, followed by at the site of tissues, and what factors are responsible for the exchange of these gases: partial pressure and the respiratory membrane and the solubility of the gases. And that lesson is very much related to the lesson that we are discussing today, and you got to be clear about the partial pressures and respiratory membranes and the solubility of the gases, for you to be remembering the concepts related with this discussion, that is transportation of gases. Okay, we shall jump into the discussion now. The transportation of respiratory gases, two gases, that is O2 and CO2. So in this segment, so we shall see the issues related with the O2 transportation, the conceptual aspects related with the oxygen transportation, right? So here the oxygen primarily is transported from where to where, right? So here the oxygen is transported from alveoli. So that means from the lungs. Alveoli from the lungs to where it is transported to the tissues. That means tissues all around the body, not just one specific tissue. From the lungs to the heart, right? From the heart, the blood is being pumped to all the body parts. So all the body tissues. So that is the transportation. So here the medium. So here the primary medium of transport. As a matter of fact, both the gases, for the O2 and CO2, the medium of transport will be the blood. So for the O2 as well, the medium of transport, will be blood. Blood is the medium of transport for the oxygen. As a matter of fact, for both the gases. For both the gases, the medium of transport is the blood. So how is it transported in the blood? In the blood, the oxygen is transported by two processes or two methods, right? So one, it is dissolved in the blood. It is dissolved in blood. So oxygen is not such a great dissolver in the blood. I mean, it doesn't dissolve much. That is why very less amount of oxygen is being transported in this method. How much it is? Just 3% of it. Right? Just 3% of the oxygen. 3% of oxygen is dissolved here and transported, and most of it is transported as something called oxyhemoglobin, or simply you can, instead of going into oxyhemoglobin, that is a compound that has formed, you can say, most of it is transported in RBC. In the RBC, how much of it is? 97%. 97%. In the RBC we have this pigment called as the hemoglobin, isn't it? We have this pigment that is hemoglobin. So this oxygen is attached to this hemoglobin, and it is transported attached to this hemoglobin, and there is this compound formed, that is oxyhemoglobin. So these are the two methods by which the oxygen is being transported. Now we'll see how the oxygen is being transported by RBC. That is, we'll see. It's just 3% is just dissolved and it is being taken to the tissues. Now, transportation by RBC, red blood cells. Red blood cells, right? In the red blood cells, what we have? We have hemoglobin. So oxygen gets attached. In the RBC, what we have? Hemoglobin gets attached with the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, it simply is indicated as HB, hemoglobin, and what do we get is we have oxyhemoglobin, HbO2, and this one is attached in a reversible manner. What does that mean here is, based on the conditions that is provided, it gets associated with the hemoglobin, and if the conditions are not favorable, it gets dissociated with the hemoglobin. So that is the central idea here, right? So if certain conditions are provided, are existing in region of the body, it gets associated with the hemoglobin, and if these conditions are not so favorable for it, right, the desired conditions are not existing in such a situation, it gets disassociated, right? So this is called as the association of HB, hemoglobin, with O2, right? And for it to happen, right, factors responsible for formation of HbO2, right? What factors should be there for you? What factors should be there for it to form the HbO2, for the association to occur? What factors should be existing? Where is this association will happen? Obviously, this association will happen in the alveoli, right? This association will happen in the alveoli. Why is that? Here we have the desired factors, desired conditions. What are the so-called desired conditions that we have for this association to happen? The desired conditions in the alveoli that we have is, we have desired, what is that? Partial pressure for oxygen, that is high PO2. High PO2 is there. What about partial pressure for CO2? Partial pressure for CO2, it is less, right? It should be less. And H plus ion concentration is also less. That means we have high pH. pH should be high for this formation to occur. These factors are very important for NEET exam, right? All this should be existing. And one more important one is less. I'll just write temperature. It should also be less. You can easily remember, only one is in high proportion or high concentration. Remaining all these three should be very less, The PCO2 should be less. H plus ion concentration should be less, which in conversion you will have high pH, and temperature should also be less. Now, what are the factors influencing the formation of this oxyhemoglobin? Right, the factors influencing the formation of this oxyhemoglobin is four factors. That is partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, H plus ion concentration, and temperature. It should be high partial pressure and low partial pressure for oxygen and less partial pressure for carbon dioxide. H plus ion concentration should be less, that means high pH, and temperature should be less. All these four factors favor the formation of the oxyhemoglobin at the site of alveoli. From the alveoli, now where will it be taken? Where will it be taken? Now from the alveoli, now this oxyhemoglobin is now taken to tissues, right? HbO2, oxyhemoglobin is transported to tissues, isn't it? It is transported to the tissues. Now at the tissues, the dissociation will happen, right? At the tissues what happens? The dissociation, right? Association, sorry. Right? So here at the tissues, the dissociation of the hemoglobin with oxygen occurs, right? Why is that happening? Why the dissociation occurs? The reason, whatever the factors that are existing here will be reversed here, right? The opposite set of factors will be there. What does that mean here is, these are same but their conditions will vary. How it is opposite? Opposite here is, so what is the situation of PO2? Right? Partial pressure of oxygen is less now. Right? Partial pressure for oxygen is less. What about PCO2? PCO2 should be more or high. High PCO2. Then H plus ions. H plus ion concentration instead of less, they will have high H plus ion concentration. In conversion leads to low pH. You have high pH here. In reverse, you have low pH at the site. So at the site of where? At the site of tissues. Now the temperature. Temperature, should it be more? Should it be less? It should also be high. Right? These four factors are now reversed. As a result of that dissociation will occur. What is the benefit? As a result of dissociation, all the oxygen that has been brought in by the hemoglobin, right? By the hemoglobin, now it is, it is divided. Now it is dissociated into hemoglobin plus oxygen. Now this oxygen is being transported to the tissues so that they can be utilized for cellular respiration. Why do we have these conditions here? Is as a result of cellular respiration. In the tissues, there is formation of carbon dioxide. So that is why this carbon dioxide is high in the tissues, right? And this carbon dioxide is converted into carbonic acid and bicarbonates for the transportation. As a result of this, more of H plus ions are produced. As a result of that, you have pH being less. As a result of that, you have pH being less, and the temperature as a result of cellular respiration. As a result of cellular respiration, you have the temperature also being elevated in the body, elevated in the tissues. As a result of that, you have high temperature. So these are the factors that are associated with the dissociation, right? So these aspects, right, these two are very important. Say for example, if I asked you high temperature, right, high temperature favors the formation of oxyhemoglobin. Obviously not. Less temperature, there are so many applied questions are being asked here. So mixing all these factors, placing these factors here and these factors there, right? So mixing of these factors, so many questions are framed. So that is why these factors which are influencing the association and the dissociation should be remembered, right? Now the question is one more important question in terms of need that is very important is, I'll just erase this and then we shall discuss furthermore. Very important concepts are still pending. We'll discuss them as well. So now, how much of this oxygen can be transported by hemoglobin? Right now, each hemoglobin molecule can carry as many as 4 molecules of oxygen, right? As many as 4 molecules of oxygen. Each hemoglobin can carry as many as 4, complete saturation. If 4 molecules are carried by hemoglobin, that's a complete saturation of hemoglobin, right? So 100 ml of blood, 100 ml of blood can carry 5 ml of O2. 5 ml of O2. These two statements are very important for need. So each hemoglobin molecule can carry as many as 4 molecules of oxygen, and 100 ml of blood can carry 5 ml of O2 finally. Okay, and now when you plot this association dissociation, you get something called oxygen dissociation curve. Very important. Oxygen dissociation dissociation curve, right? Oxygen dissociation curve, the shape of this curve is sigmoid shape. So how do we plot this curve? Is, so you are taking two axes, yeah. On the x-axis, what you are taking is, you are taking the saturation of O2 with what? With hemoglobin, and you are taking the partial pressure of O2, and the line that you get here is the sigmoid curve, right? So this is the sigmoid curve. As we have seen, the factors that are influencing is, I give you partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of CO2, pH and temperature. 4, right? And if you have this high, this less, and this less, yes, What will be your saturation capacity? So this is high saturation will be there. That means the curve will shift towards the left. Right? So if you have these factors existing, so here the curve is towards left, right, towards the x, towards the left. That means high saturation will be there. What is this green line indicating for you here? What is this indicating here is provided you have these conditions in the alveoli. So here more saturation will be there. The curve move towards this side. When it is moved towards this side, what does this mean? So we have more of saturation. More of saturation is happening. If the curve is moving towards the y-axis, right? If the curve is moving towards the y-axis, now is the saturation more or less? Obviously less. It is moving towards this direction, towards right. Right? It is moving towards right. It is moving towards right. What does this indicate is, the saturation is not happening. The complete saturation is not there. Say for example, more number of applied questions can be asked based on this. What is that is, say for example, take temperature as an example. Temperature is an example. We have low temperature. If we have low temperature, does the curve move towards left or move towards right? Right? We have low temperature. And the curve, does it move towards left or does it move towards right? Temperature less, obviously it moves towards left. High temperature, where will be there? High temperature in tissues. All these factors will be in reverse here. I'm not writing them again. So, for your benefit, I will just write them here. PO2, then we have PCO2, then we have pH, then we have, temperature. So, PO2 obviously should be less here. I'll just write this one, and all of this will be high. Right? All of this should be high. pH. So instead of pH, so this should be, I'm very sorry. So this should be high pH. This should be high pH and this should be less pH. So this is supposed to be H plus ion concentration. So this is supposed to be H plus ion concentration. So here the pH should be more. So here the pH is less. So here when you have high pH, so say for example, so here what would be the pH? So as high as say 7.4. So for this, the pH should be 7.0. Say for example, if the pH is 6.5, right? What does that mean here is decreasing pH. Allows the dissociation, right? Decreasing pH allows the dissociation. Increasing pH allows the association, right? So you are seeing the increase in pH here. So increase in pH, so this allows the association, and if it is decreasing, so this is dissociation, right? Say for example, I'll give you acidic blood. Does it favors the association or does it favors the dissociation? Obviously the acidic blood favors the dissociation. Why the blood will be acidic, right? The reason blood will be acidic is as a result of cellular respiration, lactic acid, carbon dioxide, carbonic acid, all of these are being produced in the blood. As a result of that, blood pH is being lowered. Blood pH is being lowered, and that dissociation will happen. Dissociation will happen, and that is called as Bohr effect. Right? Bohr effect is these factors responsible for the dissociation, how they are affecting the dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin is called as the Bohr effect. Right? So the factors responsible for the dissociation of oxygen with hemoglobin is called as the Bohr effect. If you study those factors, you would call it as the Bohr effect. Right? pH. pH is the less pH. Less pH means high H plus ion concentration. In the NCERT books, they have mentioned as H plus ion concentration instead of pH. Obviously, you can just make a conversion there. Okay. So this is the aspects related with the oxygen transport. Just to sum up what we have discussed, we have seen what is the medium of transport and what are the various factors responsible for the association and dissociation. What is the meaning? What is the meaning of this oxygen dissociation curve? So how we have plotted the saturation with the partial pressure. What is the meaning of the sigmoid curves? What is the meaning of the sigmoid curves? And why it is moving towards right or why it is moving towards left? Say for example, I'll give a diagrammatic representation, indicating that, say for example, the sigmoid curve is moving towards right. So the following factors are responsible for the curve to be moving right. I'll give you some options, and you should know these factors are existing there for the curve to be moving towards right. These factors are existing for the curve to be moving towards left. Is it moving towards y-axis? So this will be your y-axis, and this will be your x-axis. Why it is moving towards x and why it is moving towards y? So this also very important. So which is called as the Bohr effect, which is very important for you in the NEET exam as well. The shape of this curve, this oxygen dissociation curve, factors. Yes, 3% is plasma, and 97% is in the form of oxyhemoglobin. Yes, that is the transportation of oxygen for you. In the next segment, we shall see the transportation of carbon dioxide, how the transportation happens, right? So this transportation is happening from alveoli to the tissues, the oxygen transportation, because the tissues require the oxygen for the cellular respiration. Okay, so that is our discussion in this segment. In the next segment, we shall see the carbon dioxide. Thank you.